about this because I've been on my own health journey. And I've watched a lot of people be on health journeys. So, okay, we'll start with eights. One of the things I'll do what works for eights on a health journey and what doesn't work for eights. Does that support everybody?
Sounds
Awesome.
great.
Okay, what works for eights on a health journey? Once they choose, they choose. They need a strong leader. They need somebody who they can trust. They need an authority figure. But once an eight is in, they will basically take care of themselves. You just serve as the guide. They really want somebody to come in alongside them. They don't react well to somebody who is in front of them. So mentor style leadership is really supportive for an eight on a health journey. So what works is once they choose, they choose. What doesn't work is that they're so stubborn. And because of their idea of strength, I mean, I'll use myself as an example. I carried 85 extra pounds for years. I was in enormous pain every single day. I crawled to the bathroom every morning because I was so inflamed. And yet I would not admit to myself that I had created a weak body. Instead, I reformed that into I'm strong, I've got this, I can be this size, and I can be everything I want. I'm strong enough to handle this. So my ego turned a not great situation into my strength so that I wouldn't have to change. Those are our eights, so that's what doesn't work. Our nines, what works for a nine is that they are really go with the flow. They do want, they find they work really well in group because they want to go along with the group. They will do things to stay in connection to the group. So if you put a nine into a group coaching that they feel really connected to and that they don't want to cause chaos and conflict by not finishing the task, they're more likely to follow through. What doesn't work for a nine, they don't like to change because that is conflict or chaos. It is very, very hard for them to come up with a new routine. Or if they're living in a house with someone who doesn't want to change and they do, they are highly, 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 highly unlikely to actually do that. In fact, the nine has to be really desperate because in order for them to make that change, they are risking severing connection with the most important people in their lives. Now, they may need to risk that, but they're not going to be able to see that in the moment. Ones, what works for ones is that they can follow a prescription. You tell a one to take their supplements 3 times a day, they'll actually do it. You tell a one to go to the gym, they'll do it. But what doesn't work is that because of their perfectionism, if they fall off the horse, they just fall off the horse. They'll beat themselves up. If it's not perfect, they're not going to do it. Their inability to give themselves grace actually stops them from having good enough because they want perfect. What works for our twos, they want to please other people. So having a coach that they want to please is really supportive. Having, again, this is another, twos would be really great in a group coaching program because they want to show up and support others. So if you put twos in a role where they get to support others alongside their health, they're going to thrive because they will take care of their health for somebody else. What doesn't work for a two, very similar to the nine, is that if the people in their life are going to be affected in any way by them taking care of themselves, they likely will not act on it because twos tend to not take care of themselves just because they're so busy taking care of others. So if you've got a two with kids, husband, wife, whatever it is, they don't want to have to inconvenience the people that they love by taking care of themselves. You need to get them to see the long-term plan on that one.
And they become the person that they're trying to take care of.
Yes, they do, but
Mhm.
by the time that happens, you know what happens. Anyway, so threes, what really works for them is you set a goal for the three, they will get there. Uh, they're the people who want the check marks. They will also follow a plan. They'll create a lot of clarity and they're very image focused. So if a three doesn't look good and they decide that they want to look the best. What doesn't work for a three is if they see no path to success, they're not going to take action on that. So if you have a very overweight or unhealthy three, so I'm not a three, but I'll use myself as an example. I didn't take action on my health for a really long time because I didn't think it was possible for me to have any different outcome because of my family history, because of a million things. I didn't think it was possible. And that will be even more potent for a three if they've gotten themselves into a circumstance that they don't think that they can change. Fours, Oh, this is interesting. Fours, what works for a four? Trying to think of any fours that I know really deeply. Ooh, okay. What works for a four is that they find their own unique thing. So one four that I know really got into yoga and breath work. And like she in breath work actually is going to work really well for a four because it's intuitive, it's deep. Bringing in very self-based practices is going to work for a four because they want to be deeper in touch with themselves. So that's going to be all the information that you both provide. It's feeding the four's desire to be unique and authentic when they see all their different bacteria levels. What doesn't work is that they have a strong their uniqueness and their desire for authenticity often makes them not opt into anything in the collective mindset. So they have a hard time ascribing to the ideologies of others because of their individualistic nature. Now, if you bring them in and they're like, yes, awesome, then you've got them, you can support them in that. But they have a strong sense that they don't belong. So actually, with a four, I wouldn't necessarily put them in a group coaching program until I had established a super strong relationship with that person and had coached them into what belonging felt like in a group. Fives, these people, what's going to work for them is if you give them the information, they need to know. They are going to love all of the assessments that you do. They're going to love your information-based approach. They're going to love that it's been proven out. But what doesn't work is that they tend to conserve their time, energy, and resources. So they're going to make up the fact that they don't have enough time, they don't know enough to get started. I have one client I've worked with for a long time that like can't make herself lunch because I haven't shown her how to chop vegetables. Like she like, and it's not real. This is just, I was like, you know how to chop vegetables. There's no doing it wrong. But she used that as a, I don't know how to make lunch. And I'm like, you are an adult woman. You do. So that's what doesn't work for a five. What does work for sixes? Sixes love interconnection. They love guidance. Sixes will do what a strong lead tells them. They also love to feel safe. And so protocols and routine feels very, very good to a six. What doesn't work for a six is that they see risk everywhere. So every supplement, they're going to be looking up what's the risk. Every gym, they're going to be like, what's the risk? It's going to be really hard to get them to do something new unless you jump that risk hurdle.
Mhm.
And then sevens, what does work for a seven is that they love to try things that are new. They love to experience something. So like getting them into a new workout routine, like they'll do the new stuff. What doesn't work is that they abandon it real fast because it's boring and it feels limited and they don't want to follow a program or a plan. And they've said yes to 10 different new things at once and they can't sustain the one thing that actually matters. And that's it all.
Feel
I
like
think we